750 million. Joe, the numbers are just astounding.
That's amazing. It really is, and it's all well-deserved, if you ask me.
Is it your sense that he was excited about getting back to the stage?
Yes, I think he really was. I really think he was. He was, downhearted for a while, and I think he finally got himself up because he always sounded a lot more happy,
That was Hollywood actor and friend of Michael Jackson, Joe Pesci, talking to our colleagues in Fox News just a short time ago. Let's get back to Robert now in Washington. Robert, we're just looking at pictures of the scene at UCLA Hospital in Los Angeles, of course, where Michael Jackson was taken earlier this evening. We now know that it's thought, died at home and couldn't be resuscitated. As this news trickles out and people get to hear about it, it looks like they are descending in their droves on the hospital, not just media crews, but hundreds. It could look into the thousands there at this site in Los Angeles, there to pay their respects.
And just to set the scene, what we're looking at, this is the UCLA Medical Center. This is on the UCLA campus. And in America and many of these large cities, university campuses are equivalent to small towns or, very small cities, but, with a number of buildings. So this is actually on the campus itself. Traffic can flow fairly freely in and out of these campuses, but obviously as soon as the word got out, and of course because of Twitter, Facebook, and other modern technological tools, people started gathering there very swiftly. There was also a rumor going around that there may be a press conference, that the father may address people who are outside, but also I think there's a sense that, of events like this, which is such a cultural tsunami in a way, people want to feel that they're part of it, especially in Los Angeles, which is essentially the entertainment capital of the world still. So a number of people who will have been coming down there who I'm sure are diehard fans, but I'm sure there are also a number of people there who just want to be part of the moment because this will certainly be considered a moment in the cultural history of America.
OK, for now, thank you, Robert. Let's go to Steve Hargrave, our entertainment correspondent, who's in Glastonbury. Steve, I know it's late there, but this news trickling out with music fans at that site. What's the feeling there? Very much one of shock, I imagine.
Yeah, it's sort of understandable that at a festival where there's 140,000, maybe 180,000 people on site, actually, that rumours kind of get spread around the campsites anyway on other years. And as we've been speaking to the people that have been coming up the hill to where we're based, where we're at right now, there's a sense of people not actually still believing that this news is true, which merely confirms what we've been saying about the fact that it's come really out of the blue. Say what you want about his health problems. I think despite all that, there was still the thought that it would never come to this, and also so suddenly and so tragically. So the people we've spoken to have total and utter shock. We're already hearing of, I guess, the sort of the thing that most people want to do at a time like this is to remember the good stuff and not necessarily dwell on the stuff that maybe clouded Michael Jackson and his reputation, his image around the world. And we're already hearing that there's plenty of Michael Jackson music going on down there. I guess for the people down there who've been enjoying themselves today, been having some drinks, the shock will be coupled with the need to dance. And in many ways, that's the good thing of Michael Jackson to remember, as we've been reiterating, is to think about the music, to think about the Grammys, the classic albums, the records. And that's probably a mere testament to the fact that those songs are so damn catchy and memorable that everyone here at Glastonbury, and we've seen people of many, many different ages, will know Michael Jackson songs and will very much be shocked by the news and still want to sing along to the words. So I think Glastonbury, really, it's just a microcosm of what's going on all around the world.
Steve, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you for one moment because we're getting confirmation from the LA coroner that we've been waiting for this evening that Michael Jackson has died. That on the AFP Newswire, the LA coroner reporting that Michael Jackson has died. Of course, we've had reports throughout the evening from various sources, but now official confirmation from the LA coroner in the United States. 50-year-old pop star and icon Michael Jackson has died. Well, Steve Hargrave is talking to us from Glastonbury, and you're talking about the reaction there. Glastonbury seen very much as a young festival and more current music, perhaps, than Michael Jackson. But I imagine still many fans there of his music. As I was saying, it's transcended the ages, really. We've been getting emails in from people who've got children as young as 8 who listen to Michael Jackson's music.
Oh, totally and utterly. And I think that was the thing we were reminded of when he did the announcement of the new gigs, was the sheer range of ages that were there, both kids who we're far too young to remember Michael Jackson in what was his pop heyday of the early 80s towards 1988-89 when he did the Bad material. They wouldn't remember that. They weren't around then, and yet here they are.
Steve, we're just going to leave you there for the moment. We're going to join our colleagues over in Fox News in the States. They're talking to the Reverend Al Sharpton, the civil rights campaigner and close friend of Michael Jackson.
Hands down. I remember introducing him at James Brown's funeral. James Brown was like a father to me and was Michael's idol. And I'll never forget him calling me, saying he wanted to view James's body in the middle of the night. And I arranged for him to go to the funeral home in Augusta, view his body, and convinced him to stay. And he spoke at the last funeral of James Brown, his idol, that we often talked about. In fact, my favorite picture I kept was way before the Victory Tour was Michael, James Brown, Janet, and I. We all were much younger then, in California about 1980. And we went back about 35 years. We marched together. We fought together. I watched him do shows. I headed community affairs for his Victory Tour. I watched him sell stadiums out. Michael Jackson made culture accept a person of color way before Tiger Woods, way before Oprah Winfrey, way before Barack Obama. Michael did with music what they later did in sports and in politics and in television. And no controversy will erase the historic impact. He learned how to sing and dance past unfair criticism. He learned how to sing and dance and be creative against his worst critics. He learned how to create even beyond his own shortcomings. He knew he had shortcomings, but he knew how to build his strengths and to use his strengths to help people around the world. We Are the World would not have happened without Michael Jackson. From We Are the World came Live Aid and other things. Michael Jackson was a trailblazer. To say an icon would only give these young people in Harlem a fraction of what he was. He was a historic figure that people will measure music and the industry by. He sold more single products than any other artist, and no one could drag him down for that. I remember he once said to me, can you believe after his trial, he said to me, they actually were showing on television the cell they wanted to put me in. I said, well, they didn't crown you the king and they can't take the crown off your head. Finally, I hope Michael will get the respect he was due. If he had shortcomings, they didn't equal his strengths. And if he brought days that we all hoped were days that would never come again, they didn't measure up to the many days. There are more days that he gave us of joy and pleasure. And he never forgot coming back to the Apollo and coming back to the people. I do not know what the family's intentions are yet. I certainly will be in touch. But whatever their intentions, I remember when we suddenly, without warning, lost James Brown. I brought him back to the Apollo. I don't know if his family will send Michael back, but we will memorialize him here. And I will be wherever he is to thank Michael Jackson for never forgetting us, the fans that were with him from Gary, Indiana, that knew him before the world knew him. And when the world learned of him, he never let the world forget us. He never stopped paying tribute to Jackie Wilson and Diana Ross and James Brown and the people that came out of the Apollo. He never stopped. And we should never stop talking about Michael Jackson.
As the Reverend Al Sharpton, civil rights campaigner and close friend of Michael Jackson, giving his reaction at UCLA Hospital in Los Angeles. He called Michael Jackson a trailblazer and an historic figure. Well, we're hearing now from the Reuters news agency that the coroner at the UCLA hospital said that Michael Jackson was pronounced dead after arriving at the hospital in full cardiac arrest. And he said that an autopsy would take place most likely today, Friday. Well, let's talk to Jeannie Wolfe, West Coast editor for Parade magazine. Jeannie, We're getting reaction there from Reverend Al Sharpton, one of the many people whose lives Michael Jackson touched, and giving fulsome praise for him and the part that he's played in America's music history.
Well, the one thing I have to say that I share with Reverend Sharpton is that I did have the opportunity to spend a lot of time around Michael and be part, at least for a while, of his kind of trusted inner circle. And he absolutely, as a musician and as a person, was like no one you ever met. You know those scenes you'll see of him arriving at concerts with fans crying and screaming. I think you're going to see that, and I think you're seeing people sitting at home in front of radios and TV sets crying right now. The man had not only great artistic ability, but an almost spiritual ability to touch people, even in the 100th row at a concert. People who got mad at him over the years for his eccentricities and said they'd never listen to his music again couldn't help themselves. There isn't a day or a place that you don't hear Michael Jackson played around the world. His music will live forever. His moves, the inspiration that he gave as a crossover artist, people will remember him, and each in their own way forever. And like we said, little kids on the playground are doing the moonwalk, and people are remembering where they first heard the Michael Jackson music. And I'm remembering spending days on the set with him, seeming so fragile, and you almost didn't want to talk to him or bother him. And then when it was time to perform, I was on a set in the middle of the desert, I don't know, way over 100 degrees. Michael just pops up, performs, gave it his all, and gave that same spirit to the camera that he gave in live performance. And also, let's not forget what he contributed to the video art form. He turned videos into something quite different. His videos will be remembered and played forever.
Jeannie, you said you were part of Michael Jackson's inner circle. When's the last time that you had any contact with him?
Now, that all changed when the big trial came, and I haven't seen him in several years. I think the last time I saw him, there was a tribute to him, even after some of the troubles had started, and he was surrounded by security guards, and they were keeping everyone away, and he saw me, and he said, no, let Jeannie come through, and told me how proud he was that he was receiving an award, and how good he felt about himself. I've been hearing stories lately about
Jeannie,
his excitement about the new tour and his fears.
Jeannie, sorry for interrupting you there. We're just looking at pictures coming into us here on Hollywood TV. This appears to be the Los Angeles Fire Department paramedic crew arriving at, it appears to be, Michael Jackson's home. This, of course, reported on the TMZ website a couple of hours ago that paramedic crews were called to Michael Jackson's Los Angeles home in Holmby Hills at 12:21 local time. It's reported that he'd had a cardiac arrest and paramedics attempted to resuscitate him at the scene. Well, it's now known that he died from cardiac arrest, and we've had confirmation from the coroner that Michael Jackson was pronounced dead after arriving at the hospital, and that an autopsy will be held on Friday, it's thought, in the UCLA hospital in Los Angeles. These are the first moving pictures we have in from Hollywood TV, as you can see there, of what's thought to be the paramedic crew arriving at the 50-year-old pop star's home earlier this evening. The TMZ website were reporting that there were scenes of chaos when he arrived at the UCLA hospital, with members of his team, his family who arrived with him, screaming, "You must save him, please save him." Well, those pictures now appear to have stopped, but it's thought they are grainy images of the paramedics arriving at Michael Jackson's home earlier today, called just around lunchtime, local time, performed CPR, it's thought, on site at the home. Then he was rushed to UCLA hospital. His family, of course, were called immediately. It's reported his brothers were rushing to the scene at the hospital. Well, we were speaking a moment ago to Jeannie Wolf, from West Coast editor for Parade magazine. Jeannie, we're just looking at pictures of the scene at UCLA Hospital where hundreds of people are gathering. We can see the crowds getting bigger and bigger by the moment. Not just media crews, but as we were saying, ordinary people, people who want to pay their respects to a man who will be remembered. How would you sum him up?
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Jeannie. I'm not sure if you just heard what I was asking you. I was just saying,
I did.
How would you
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your question.
How would you sum up Michael Jackson as a person who knew him? As you said, you were part of his inner circle. On a personal note, how would you describe him, the man?
I would describe him as almost indefinable. Very, very shy and fragile, and very strong and a perfectionist and a great leader when it came to getting his music exactly the way he wanted. He knew how he wanted his dancers surrounding him. He would redo a song over and over again, and I remember one seasoned sound mixer saying, "I couldn't believe it. We finally got what we wanted in the middle of the night," and Michael just broke down into tears. He took his music and his life and his dedication to young children and charity very seriously, and people just adored him beyond words.
You said that you didn't have any contact with him after the last court case. How did that impact on him? Because, of course, he's obviously a controversial figure with those child molestation charges against him.
I think his depression worsened. I think his health worsened. I think he was embarrassed and ashamed, and I also think he was in financial difficulty. He tried to hide. He went all over the world trying to hide, and there was always somebody who wanted to be near him and always somebody who wanted to save him, but at a price. So that in the end, when he was committed to doing these concerts in London, he was excited about the fact that they were sold out and that the love for him still existed, and frightened and exhausted at the prospect of doing as many shows as they had committed him to.
And did you see him with his children very often? Of course, he leaves 3 young children behind now. Were you part of that? Did you see him in his inner circle?
I had seen him with his children, but in those years when I was around him, they were much younger, and he was much more protective. What I did see him with often was a string of children who would just come down to watch him on the set. He was like the Pied Piper who hung on his every word, and he may not have had time for the press. He may have been shy around all kinds of people, but for children, he came alive, and you could see him kidding around. You could see the boyish side of him. You could see the concerned and caring side of him.
Yeah, we've got pictures that we're just going to play now, Jeannie, of that controversial episode, which you might remember, of him dangling his youngest child over a balcony. It was while he was on tour, I think, in Europe several years ago. And it hit
the baby dangling incident will follow him forever. You know, it was very hard, even for people who knew him, to decide whether he was exuberant or excited or didn't know what he was doing, or whether he knew exactly what he was doing, because he absolutely had the knack for getting worldwide attention. It may not have been the kind of attention that you and I would want, but Michael Jackson somehow knew how to bring his eccentricities out in public, how to fascinate people. They didn't get tired of his music, and they didn't get tired of the saga of his life, and he always surprised them, including, I'm sad to say, even today.
OK, Jeannie Wolf, thanks very much for joining us tonight here on Sky News. Let's join Uri Geller now, close personal friend of Michael Jackson. Michael, thank you very much for being with us. We spoke to you just around an hour ago when this news first broke, and you were understandably extremely upset, and you've had time now for this news to sink in. Have you spoken to any of Michael's family at all?
No, it's impossible to reach them. Everyone is devastated worldwide. It's shocking. Everyone was waiting for this huge comeback here in London. I know for a fact that he was rehearsing, practicing. He was in good shape. He sat right here where I'm sitting right now. He was my best man when I renewed my wedding vows. Just to think that the world lost Michael Jackson and Michael is not alive anymore is just unreal. It's surreal. It's still, I cannot penetrate into my psyche. I cannot believe that Michael is gone.
When was the last time that you spoke to him?
I don't want to comment about personal things. I had my ups and downs with Michael, by the way. I had rows with Michael. I think that I was one of the very few people who dared to shout at Michael when I thought he was doing the wrong things. I pray to God that his soul is up there in heaven, and you know, I can feel the sadness and the shock factor emanating out from hundreds of millions of people around the world who are trying to digest the fact, the hard fact that he's gone.
I appreciate you don't want to talk too much about your last conversations with Michael Jackson, but as far as his health is concerned, what did you understand his state of health to be?
Look, I'm not a doctor, but I can only assume that he was under tremendous, tremendous pressures and stress. And you can ask any doctor, stress is a killer. And I think that, and this is my own theory, that the anticipation of this mammoth challenge that was coming up upon him, doing these 50 concerts, wanting to be close to perfection when he was going to be on stage, put him under huge, huge pressures. That could have been it. Again, this is just my opinion.
Was it therefore, in your view, a mistake for him to undertake this 50-date tour?
I do not think it was a mistake to take the tour, but I think it was a mistake to do so many shows, to target 50 shows. I think 3, 4, 5, you know, maximum 10. But to do 50 is just, I mean, it's hard for any super artist, anyone. You know, Michael wasn't 18, but he was very, very fit, both in his mind, in his soul, and physically in his body. He was a dancer, for goodness sake. He danced all his life. He was aerobically fit. He was thin. He was careful in what he ate. I remember him here sitting. He wouldn't touch junk food. He told me, go and get me Indian chicken tikka, whatever. So to comprehend this devastating reality that Michael is dead, I want to wake up tomorrow and wake up and think that this is a horror film and this is a dream. But unfortunately, it's not. Michael is dead.
Yuri, we're just looking at pictures of you and Michael Jackson at an event several years ago. You say you were one of the few people he knew who would perhaps be honest with him, tell him the truth about certain things. I appreciate you probably don't want to tell us what those things were, but was he a man who perhaps wouldn't have listened if people such as yourself were telling him, listen, you know, you're just not up to this and it's too tough?
Yes, I told him many things. You know, I spent time with him in hotel rooms, in the darkened hours of in New York, in the hit studio when he did Invincible, which I actually designed a part of the booklet. But I remember in this very room, I once looked at him and I asked him, Michael, are you a lonely man? And he looked up at me and he looked and looked for seconds upon seconds. And then he said, Uri Geller, I'm a very lonely man. That sums it up, really.
That's desperately sad, isn't it? Was he a sad man?
Yeah. I think he was a happy man when fans were around him. He drank their love. He knew how to absorb the affection, the energy that they were emitting to him. He loved dancing. He loved creating. He was a genius. I think his record still stands as #1 hit record out of all records. He loved what he did. But somewhere in the deep, dark corners of his heart, he was a confused man and a lonely person. And the reason was, I believe, is because nobody really understood Michael Jackson. And he went through hell. Anyhow, he's in heaven now. He's definitely in a better place than we are in. So God bless him, and thanks for, for everyone's prayers right now to Michael Jackson from around the world. Thank you.
Yuri, you say he went through hell. Are you referring to the child molestation charges there?
Yes, I'm referring to that. And I remember when he was going through hell, I always believed that he was innocent. And do you know why? I will tell you something that I've told just very few times. When we were in the hit studio in New York, he asked me how he could stop from eating a certain food he didn't want to touch. And I kind of jokingly said, well, will you allow me to hypnotize you? And because I was a hypnotist before I started my career in Israel. And he said, yeah, Uri, why don't you do that? And I hypnotized him, and I did something highly, highly unethical. While he was deep under trance or in trance, I asked him, Michael, did you ever touch a child in an inappropriate manner? And he immediately said, no, I would never do that. And then I asked him, well, why did you pay this Jodie Chandler millions? And he immediately said, and this is under deep hypnosis, he said, I couldn't take it anymore, I had enough. To me, this was a personal validation that the man was innocent, and innocent he was found to be. But you have no idea what he went through. Nobody will know that, only Michael Jackson.
As you say,
and maybe this was part of what he went through that in the end killed him. And no one will know.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much did this impact on him in his later years? He was found innocent, but the controversy never really went away, did it?
You know, the media sometimes can be very vicious. You know, they build you, they devastate you, they put you on a pedestal and they shatter the pedestal. And there were many media outlets that still, especially radio stations in the United States, that still referred to him in a very negative manner. And come on, Michael was an American. To hear that coming from American media wasn't nice to hear. And it affected him, no doubt. But then Michael was a genius. Once again, there was so much more to come from him. I can only tell you that I had rows, and there were times that I did not speak to him. I know that when he came here the last time, he asked a friend, hey, where is Uri Geller? Let's call Uri. There were times where I would not speak to him for certain reasons, my own reasons. But I am now shattered like everyone else. I am saddened. I'm speechless. And I cannot believe that Michael is no longer with us. It's unbelievable.
Yuri, of course, Michael Jackson leaves behind 3 very young children. Do you know what the situation is with regards to their mothers, two different mothers for the 3 children? Was he in contact with them? Will their mothers be there for the children now?
I do not want to comment on that. I know that Michael was a good father. No matter what you read, what he did, he was a good father and he loved his kids. He loved his kids. I never forget the day when we sat at a private screening in New York watching a movie, and the way he treated his children was like a great down-to-earth dad. He loved them. That's it.
And what about the rest of Michael Jackson's family? Just briefly, what were his relations? He did have a controversial relationship with his father.
Well, I remember once Michael telling me something. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but he's up there, he's probably watching us all now. You know, I asked him, Michael, why the operations? What are you doing to your face? And Michael said to me,